Hello, and welcome to the next episode of the Katie and Siegfried Show, where we talk about the Two Towers.
Yeah, so we'll start with a story recap slash, not recap of the entire story, but like a story recap in the sense of like what we didn't remember, any scenes that we think were extended. I mean, I don't have the list in front of me, but I just want to go off of like, hey, like, I don't remember this, so like, maybe it was extended, or like this seems to be extended kind of deal. And then we'll loop back towards our favorite characters of the film, which we had discussed actually privately already. And I think Katie's answer surprised me. Mine did not surprise me at all because I kind of expected it over time.
I was not surprised when you told me what yours was.
There is another part to it actually that I should have added, but we'll get to that when we get there. But yeah, so overall, again, Lord of the Rings, always great fun. I thought they once again juggled the humor, the horror aspects. There were a lot less horror aspects, I would say. In this one, it was more like more action heavy, more like, more on the hitting that what's the word I'm looking for? Tragedy again, kind of like how Boromir died in the first film. We have one of the elf generals dying in this one, and a couple other characters.
His skull gets cleaved in half.
Yeah, and then the whole, like, Boromir's brother talking about, how Boromir, he saw Boromir's dead body, and, like, remembering some of, like, how his dad's kind of a jerk, an all-around jerk.
Nicely.
But yeah, there was one scene that I know for sure was not in the theatrical release, or at least I don't remember it being in the theatrical release, which is Merry and Pippin in the woods, when they find some special water that Treebeard apparently didn't want one of them to drink, and like they start getting a little taller temporarily.
In air quotes, didn't want him to drink. I think Pippin was just being selfish and telling Merry he can't drink it because quote unquote Treebeard didn't want him to.
Most likely. And then, they get grabbed by one of the trees, and Treebeard has to come and tell the tree to let them go. Yeah, it was interesting. I think they definitely, like I said, they handle all the different aspects of it fairly well. I do think the horror aspect definitely got dialed down in a sense, or maybe it's because, like, we're becoming desensitized to some of the horror aspects of seeing, like, the Nazgul and stuff. Like, yeah, they're still scary, but, like, I think the first time you see them, they're much scarier because they're more in your face.
Yeah.
Whereas, like, here, the closest one of them gets is, like, they nearly kill Frodo, but, like, it's pretty clear he's not going to die because it's the middle part of the trilogy, right? And also Sam is rushing towards to save him, and, like, Sam does. Whereas, like, in the first film, it's, like, they're much more in your face and, like, intimidating. And then here, the only time we see one, it's a lot farther off because it's flying on a flying animal of sorts. I don't know if you could call it technically a dragon or not.
But it looks like a dragon.
Yeah, it's kind of
doesn't breathe fire,
like
though.
A skinny dragon. I forget what they do have a name. I don't remember what it is. We do get our first look at the elephants. I can't remember what they call them in Lord of the Rings, but that was cool.
Mm-hmm.
And then we get a little bit of a taste of what the Gondorians are like, which is cool, and we get like some hints about where the war is going to go in the next film.
Yeah. And spoiler alert, Gandalf comes back.
Yes, he does, which was a great scene. It was I think they did a good job of trying to like confuse you when Merry and Pippin run into him, and like, oh shoot, it might be Saruman kind of deal. And then it's very quickly shown when Legolas, Gimli, and Aragorn run across from him. It's very clear, like almost immediately, at least to me. However, again, I've read the books and seen the movies before. It was very quickly clear that it was not Saruman there. Which is perfectly fine, but, yeah. So, yeah, I don't... There probably were other extended scenes, I just don't remember offhand. I think that's a good thing, though, because that generally just means, like, the flow of the movie wasn't interrupted by that.
Yeah.
Because, like, the whole Merry and Pippin drinking, like, the thing getting a little taller, that did interrupt the movie. Not in a bad way, it's just, like, very clearly this was something that was not in the theatrical release.
Yeah, it lightened the mood of the movie a bit.
Oh yeah, I don't think it was a bad thing to add in. I'm just saying it's interesting to me that how like other extended scenes just kind of like felt natural, whereas that one like for whatever reason it just stuck out to me.
Yeah.
I think it was because like the Lord of the Rings is so like not I don't know how to word this, like crisply cut. Like it's cut so like it keeps the, like there are scenes where like we're gonna cool off from the tension a little bit, but like never too long and never too outlandish. And like this was getting a little bit out there. I think it was a fun scene for them, but like it was a little bit like, what's the point kind of thing. I don't think it was bad to have. I think it was nice to have like a little time to just catch an extra breather.
Yeah, I kind of thought the point was to show like how the Forest of Fangorn is like a magical place.
That's fair, but I mean I think we see that just by the treants, right?
Fair, but it's highlighting and like hitting home the point.
Yeah, sure, but I mean like I can see why this was cut. Whereas like there's other extended scenes where I'm like, I feel like that should have been in the movie.
Yeah.
Or like, it just adds extra character or like extra time with characters. And I'm like, this. I can see why you cut it because like it's not critical, but like also like having it here was nice, and I don't.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't think any of the other scenes really stood out to me in terms of like being extended. Like I'm sure they were like I mean this is. I forget how much longer. I don't have. It
was like half an hour.
Yeah, there's a good chunk of added content. So like it's very clearly been extended. I just
can't remember. Without
a list, I wouldn't be able to tell you. Kind of deal.
Yeah.
Which is a good thing. That's what I want. Like I don't want to be sitting through an extended version and be like, "Whoa, all right, there was a lot of extensions there." Because I feel like that's just like I'm not really enjoying the movie at that point. Because I'm like, well, I want to come across from an extended edition and be like, okay, I don't know what was extended, or I know very little, because it makes me feel more like, okay, that was just natural.
Yeah, I kind of felt the same way with the first movie. Like, it wasn't... there were occasional times that I'd be like, oh, I think that scene was added, or, oh, I think that scene was extended, but, like, it didn't bother me.
It flowed nicely.
Yeah.
I think the only one in the first film, which is what I mentioned in the last podcast, was the elves walking through the forest kind of scene. I was just kind of like, okay, like, it's nice to see that, but, like... I know this is an impact later in the series, especially in and mentioned to Arwen in this one, and then at the end of the series when several of the characters go off to the to those lands. But like, it kind of felt out of place in the first film. Like, I'm not saying it felt out of place in the sense that because we understand that elves are dying, right? Like the whole point of this is like elves are like going off into the. The time of elves is over. It's mentioned again in this film. They do help out at that Battle of Helm's Deep, but like, the point is like elves are getting out of here, right? And like things are going bad, and like they kind of have mixed feelings. Like that's why Elrond sent his troops to help out at Helm's Deep, because it's like, well, yeah, our time is up, but also like, are we really gonna abandon Middle Earth? Like so they're kind of on the fence about it in certain groups. I mean, Galadriel is actually the one that convinces Elrond. I don't remember if that was in the original or not. It might have been. I can't remember offhand.
Yeah.
But.
Yeah.
But like I was saying, like I just felt like in the first film that scene kind of just felt out of place. I think it would have worked better here.
That's fair.
Like have it before Galadriel and Elrond are discussing Middle Earth. Like have Sam and Frodo. I mean, it would have. The problem is, I just think that scene just kind of breaks the flow anywhere else than where it was placed in the extended edition of the first film, because like kind of it works the best there. But like, it's much more hammered home, I feel, in this film that like, yeah, elves are actually leaving. Like everything's going horribly, and the elves are discussing like the fact that like, yeah, we're gonna be gone, like and they decide not to leave until at least helping with Helm's Deep at the least. But like I don't feel like it would have fit in this movie if they put the scene in here, even though it like thematically makes more sense to me.
Yeah, but for the first film, the only other scenes I noticed that were like extended was when Sam's chasing after Frodo and he starts to drown. That scene had a couple. It was extended.
Oh yeah, where Sam like it seems much more dramatic in the extended edition that like, wow, he really almost died. Whereas like in the theatrical release, like Frodo just like pulls him out like almost immediately.
Yeah, the other thing was that when Aragorn's looking at the statue with his mom.
Yes, that's true. But both of those scenes felt fine to me.
Yeah, I'm not saying they didn't feel fine. I'm just saying I also noticed those as well.
Yeah. Well, yeah, we mentioned that when we were watching them. But yeah, I think for the Two Towers, I think that was about the only one that I really like. Was like, that seems a little new to me. But yeah, I mean, overall, I had a lot of fun. I still think the extended editions so far are better than the theatrical releases. Because I think like most of like the extensions are better, just overall, like they add. like the scene, like you mentioned, with Sam drowning in the first one, like that was much more. It felt a lot like that situation was a lot worse than like just Frodo like basically picking him up immediately.
Yeah.
It felt a lot more dangerous. But yeah, so I think that's all I gotta say on the whole like extended part and like my review of like the story itself. Like I don't think we need to really rehash the entire plot of the film or anything like that. I think it's more important just to discuss like the extended portion. So let's move on to the next section, which is our favorite characters for this film, not overall, just for this film.
For this film, you go first.
Okay, so mine would definitely be Gimli and Legolas.
Okay. I'm not surprised.
Primarily Gimli, but Legolas as a secondary because a lot of Gimli's humor in this film is played off of Legolas or played with Legolas. Like they're joking around like, oh, how many did you kill at the Battle of Helm's Deep, right? And like Gimli's just overall given a lot more screen time. He's very funny. The actor does a great job of being very humorous. And just he's just contributing a lot more. I felt in this film.
Flirts up a storm with Eowyn.
Yeah, he does. Yeah.
And she is able to, or he's able to bring a lot of joy to Eowyn, according to the uncle.
Yes.
Because he hasn't seen her smile since her dad died. So
well, I mean, I think to be fair, it's also just because like Theoden's back. Like, they broke the curse on Theoden.
Fair.
So like, yeah, Gimli's like joking around with her, but like, had Theoden still been under the spell of Saruman, I don't think she would have been receptive to anything like that.
Fair.
But yeah, I think like on top of the fact that she's already happier, like Gimli's being goofy and like, being funny. And yeah, he's a very funny character in this movie, and I think Legolas also was very funny, especially at the end when Gimli's like, "Oh, I got 43 kills, and you only got 42," and then Legolas shoots the dead orc and says, "That's 43," and Gimli's like, "What? He's only twitching because my axe is in his head." Like that was pretty funny. But yeah, I think they definitely like they got the extra screen time that really helped a lot. Gandalf is a close honorary mention because he did
save the day.
He saved the day, but like also like he did so much in this movie. Like he's talking to Treebeard, he's getting that all going. Like at least saving Merry and Pippin, so, and then getting the Rohirrim to come back and help with the Battle of Helm's Deep, and also curing Theoden of Saruman's spell. Like there's a lot going on with Gandalf in this movie.
Yes.
Also, important to note, we get to see him kill the Balrog, which was cool.
Yes.
All right, who's your favorite?
My favorite, Siegfried was a bit surprised at this, was Boromir's brother Faramir. Because I thought he had like a really good character arc in this movie. He starts off as like, it's kind of like a flashback where we see like, Boromir's still alive and their dad wants to go send Boromir to go talk to Elrond, the King of the Elves, because apparently there's an important mission and
which is referencing the Fellowship,
which is
the ring founding.
Yeah. And the dad suspects it's that, and he's like, "Son, Boromir, you better bring the ring back to me, okay? We need to save Gondor." And then Boromir's like, I don't really know, kind of deal. And Faramir's like, "I'll go."
Can I step in real quick?
Yeah.
Okay, so for context here, Gondor is the closest country to Mordor. So like Gondorians have been fighting the war for far longer than anyone else by holding back the orcs and such, which is why the king is like, hey, we need any weapon and every weapon we can get our hands on. Well, excuse me, not the king, the steward of Gondor, because there is currently no king of Gondor. It would be Aragorn, but he self-exiled for reasons.
Yeah, that is fair. And then Boromir's not sure if he's gonna go, and Faramir's like, "I'll do it." And then Boromir, like their dad is a jerk to Faramir, and he's like, "No, you're gonna like."
Yeah,
job kind of deal.
He says like Faramir has a specific set of skills which are very limited is basically what he says to Boromir, and Boromir obviously protests, but is like at the end of the day like, okay, fine, like
I'll do it.
And
then when Faramir, like fast forward to the present, Faramir finds Frodo, who has the ring, and he's like, "I'll go and prove my dad wrong," kind of deal. But by the end of the movie, he realizes this isn't just about like saving Gondor, that we need to save the whole world, and the only way to save the whole world is for the ring to be destroyed. And he's like, I'm not gonna hold up Frodo and Sam anymore, and I'm gonna go let them destroy the ring, because Frodo's the only one that can actually like carry the ring without being corrupted by it.
Well, I mean, not like without being corrupted by it, but like he's the only person that we've ever seen who's like tried to push back against this corruption. Like, he is clearly being corrupted by it to an extent, but like, out of all the characters we've ever seen interact with the ring or be around the ring, he's the only one that's like willingly like, I'm not putting it on. Okay. Like,
I guess the phraseology I should have used is least corrupted.
Right. Because even Faramir was like considering using it, and even then, like, he was really struggling not to, and like. But like, I think also part of it is just like he saw like the death and destruction that follows the ring, and is like, okay, maybe I'm wrong here, you know?
Yeah.
Maybe this is not a good idea.
Yeah, and he's willing to risk like the punishment of like the steward of Gondor, his dad, like to like go be like, bye Frodo and Sam, go on your way, adios.
Yeah. All right, so I think since we talked about our favorite characters, I want to move into final thoughts on the movie. So like, yes.
Didn't you want to talk about how you thought that Gandalf didn't show up until basically the end?
Yeah, that was gonna be.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, like I did have some sequence of events swapped around in my head. Of like when Gandalf showed up, for whatever reason I didn't think I totally forgot that like I knew Merry and Pippin ran into him, but I did not think the Aragorn, Legolas, and Gimli ran into him in the forest. I thought for some reason he just showed up later in the movie. I don't remember why, but one interesting thing to me was like Gollum gets treated pretty horribly in this film. Faramir and his band of Gondorians beat the crap out of him for information. And it's very interesting because like Frodo refers to him, and I don't know if this is how it's been throughout the whole first film and second film. I just noticed it towards the end of this one. He keeps calling him Smeagol, which is his Hobbit name before he became corrupted by the ring and became Gollum, and Sam calls him only Gollum. Like I said, I'd have to rewatch the first one and parts of the second to verify that that's the same throughout the whole thing. But it's just interesting because like Frodo's always looking on like the optimistic side, like, hey, like maybe we can bring him back. And I think a big part of that is because like Frodo's like, what if I get corrupted by the ring and then like I'm doomed to be like Gollum basically.
Yeah.
Whereas like Sam's like, no, he's too far gone. There's nothing that can be done. Like it's over. Like why are you pushing this? And like I get both sides of the argument. Like I can see why Sam doesn't know what Frodo's talking about because he's not bearing the ring and he's not framing it through that way. And I can see where Frodo's coming from, too. But, like, it's just interesting to see their different philosophies. Like, they're both kind of right. Because, like, to an extent, there is still part of Smeagol in Gollum. But, like, the problem is, like Sam said, like, we can't trust him because the Gollum personality is so dominant. Which, obviously, they don't know that because they don't know the internal thinking of Gollum. But, like, to us, the viewer, it's very obvious that Smeagol is no longer in charge of his, like, he's very much the submissive personality.
Yeah.
And the dominant one is Gollum, which is telling him to commit violence and kill Frodo and Sam, and on and on. And like, hey, let's go lead them to Shelob, which will happen in the third film, to get them killed. But yeah, it was just an interesting thing that I noted that I never really considered like in the past. Like, I mean, yeah, it's pretty obvious in their actions, right? Like Sam never is trusting, but like I never noticed that they call him
different names.
Right. Like Frodo's saying Smeagol, where are you? And like Sam's like Gollum, you know, like. Is very much indicative of how they view Smeagol himself.
Yeah.
Or Gollum, however you want to call whatever you want to call him.
Yeah. Something interesting that are you done? Sorry.
Yeah, I'm good.
Okay. Something that I noticed that I thought was good. For some reason, I thought the whole like Shelob thing happened in this film. Shelob is the big spider. I thought that sequence happened in this film for some reason. I clearly was wrong. That
happens in the third one, and then I think they get captured by the orcs temporarily. I don't remember how they get away. Oh wait, maybe it's Sam sneaking around that somehow saves them. Cause I know Frodo gets bitten by the spider or something, and then I think he gets taken by the orcs and they save him from Shelob. But then like Sam is tracking them, and I think he gets them out somehow. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see the third one because like. I think I have a good handle on the sequence of events, but I'd be curious to see if that's true or not, because so far it has not held up quite right.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm looking forward to it. I think they do a good job of setting things up. I think I was telling you during the movie, like I thought it was an interesting choice that like Aragorn's clearly in love with Arwen, but like we don't really like get much character development for her, like. There's mention, like, yeah, like, Aragorn grew up in Rivendell, so, like, clearly he knows her and has known her for a long time, and, like, he's a Dunedain, so like his lifespan is a lot longer than normal humans. Like he's 87 years old and looks like he's in his 30s.
Oh, I thought he looked like 45.
I would say like late 30s, early 40s, probably. At least to me, like he doesn't look.
87.
He does not look like middle aged or even older than that. Which 87, much older than middle age, but, so yeah, like it's just interesting because like Eowyn, for instance, gets a ton of character development in the movies, whereas like Arwen's just kind of like, oh, like I love Aragorn, like I don't want to go to like the land of the, where all the elves go when they die, or like to live forever. And it's like, okay, like, I get it. Like, they clearly have a past, and, like, they're clearly in love. And, like, that's great and all. Like, I respect that. That's wonderful.
Yeah.
But I kind of wish we could have gotten more, because it just, like, at least for the movies, it just kind of doesn't feel as compelling as, like, Eowyn, who's, like, very clearly this badass who wants to take care of her people, and, like, she gets so much to do in the movies. And then Arwen's just kind of, like, just there.
Oh, did you want to also talk about how he broke his toe?
Sure. Go ahead. Take it away.
Yeah, so when Legolas, Gimli, and Aragorn are tracking Merry and Pippin, at one point, they find a pile of dead orcs, and they think that Merry and Pippin died with them, because they find a little sword from one of them.
It's a
dagger
shirt thingy.
Is it a sword? I thought it was a dagger.
It might have actually been a weapon. I can't remember. No, because originally, I think you're right. I think this is before they find the shirt thing, because he throws that down.
Yeah, he threw that down at a different point. But
yeah,
I'm talking about the...
Yeah, no, I think it was
the
one of the
weapon
weapons.
in the body pile.
Yeah, okay.
That's a different...
You're
talking about
I think
different
right.
thing.
Yeah.
And, Aragorn kicks a helmet, apparently, of one of the orcs, and apparently the actor was supposed to kick it, but he kicked the helmet so hard that he actually broke his toe, and so the scream that you hear after he kicks the helmet is him being in pain because he broke his toe. Life hack: do not break your toe. Apparently it really hurts.
Yeah, that was interesting, because like I mean, as much as I sometimes am like wary of putting something like that and keeping it in the film, like the scream fit the scene so well, like just the anguish that he felt, like the character would have felt thinking his friends are dead, when in reality, yeah, it's just because he actually broke his toe. But like on the other hand, they probably asked him like, hey, we did this cut, and like clearly you probably don't want to kick this ever again, so like are we good keeping that in? Yeah. I'm sure he was like, yes. We are good, I don't want to do it again. I'm good, like I don't care what you put there. I'm not kicking it again. Like, but yeah, there's a lot of other final thoughts. Like the other thing I would say is like the Battle of Helm's Deep was awesome. I think it's interesting because like going into the movie, like it's a lot shorter than I remembered, but at the same time, after having watched it, it still feels like the same length that I thought it was, even though it's not as long as I feel like it was. You know what I mean? Like, I know that doesn't make terribly much sense. Like, let's say, I don't know how long it actually was. Like, but let's say it's like 20 minutes of the movie, right? Yeah. In my mind, the battle went on for like half the movie. And even after watching it, knowing it's not half the movie, it still felt like it was a lot longer than it actually was. Which was cool. I mean, they did a great job. And I think, like, I was telling Katie when we were watching, I'm like, hey, as epic as this battle is, the one in the Return of the Kings at Minas Tirith, and I mean, at the Black Gate, and like some of the other battles, like those felt even more epic to me. Mm-hmm. To be fair, the one at Minas Tirith, I think there's like multiple armies colliding, because I know Aragorn brings. Well, we'll get there when we get there. But the point is, like, I think it's the larger scale battle than just, because Helm's Deep is really just what the humans in the keep, and then the elves, and then an additional army of Rohirrim that show up at the end of the battle, going head-to-head with the orcs and Uruk-hai. Whereas in the Return of the King, that battle is just... It's a lot of groups, and it's a lot to digest. Yeah. But it's very cool. But yeah, the Battle of Helm's Deep was really cool. That was a lot of fun.
Yeah. Also, for some reason, in my head, there was this vision that Arwen had of hers and Aragorn's kid. I thought that was in that movie. I don't know where I got that from.
Yeah, I mean, they do show the future where, like, Aragorn is dead because she's an elf and she'll live forever. Which is interesting to me that, like, the implications, like, they wouldn't have children. I don't know if that's a factor of, like, elves don't reproduce anymore, or, like, she's maybe elven biology at her age. I have no idea how old Arwen is. But, like, maybe she's past the point of being able to be a mom. But yeah, it was interesting to see that because it was like when he dies, like you'll have nothing left, and it's like, well, that's interesting. Not even like children, huh? Again, I could be missing something, some kind of context in Lord of the Rings. Like maybe elves don't have kids anymore. I don't know. There's probably something I'm not privy to, or maybe it's just a matter of like humans and elves can't crossbreed. I don't know.
Yeah.
Even though Aragorn's like, yeah. But yeah, it was well done. I definitely think the whole Theoden changing from being an old guy, like a really old man, back to his normal self was really cool. Like the editing was really cool there. That was great. It was very well done. I did complain to Katie. I'm like, like I feel like they should have killed Grey Worm.
You mean Wormtongue?
Yeah.
Oh, I heard Grimton, and I was like, what?
Yeah.
His name's Grima Wormtongue. Yes. I misheard you. I'm sorry.
No, I think I said it wrong.
I heard Grimton, and I was like, who?
No, I think I said something wrong. Oh yeah, I used a term from Game of Thrones, some other character. Whoops.
That's why I was confused.
I've never seen a similar weird name. But anyways, I think they should have killed him. I know Aragorn was like, no, like he's already shed enough blood, but I'm like, this dude knows all your strengths and weaknesses, and is very clearly gonna run straight to Saruman. Like, and has caused so much turmoil, like, he deserves a swift and immediate execution. So I'm like, in my opinion, that would have been the proper thing to do. And then, like, it doesn't necessarily even need to be public. Like, you could just drag him into the keep and, like, execute him somewhere privately. And then just be like, hey, the king's back, we're good, King Theoden's back, Because, like I said, he ran immediately in the Two Towers to Saruman, gave him all the information on Helm's Deep, etc. Yeah, I'm sure it's possible that Saruman would have figured out certain things. And yes, at the end of the day, it did kind of work out in the favor of Rohan that the battle happened. But still, yeah. I just think it would have made more sense to just execute him. Because, like, there was no reason to give the enemy that information, in my opinion.
Yeah. Sorry about being confused. Never seen Game of Thrones.
Yeah, well, you probably shouldn't watch it anyways, because it's not very good for the last couple seasons anyways. But that's neither here nor there. Yeah. So, that was probably... It's not a complaint with the story or the show or the movie itself. It's just more like, if I were Theoden, I would have just told Aragorn to go pound sand and executed Wormtongue. That would have been me. Yeah. But, yeah, I liked the movie a lot. It was great. It was about as good as I remember, which is to say it's very good. Yeah. I mean... I enjoyed it. I don't think any of them have exceeded my expectations for them. They've met the expectations, and the expectations are like, these are amazing movies, like, top 10. So, like, it's meeting what I expected. Yeah. I will say, maybe it's gone a little bit above them, actually, just because the extended portions, like, have added value overall, I think. Mm-hmm. But, yeah, I liked it. And I'm looking forward to 3.
Yep.
All right, that'll about do it for us.
All right. Like, comment, subscribe. See you next time.